Alright. Hey, what's up, Street Talks? Eric Kim from the Eric Kim Street Photography Blog. Here in Canada with my boy
Josh. What's up?
So Josh White. So Josh, tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourselves to the viewers out there.
So my name is Josh. I'm originally from Newfoundland here in Canada. I lived in Korea for a long time. Most people probably know my Korean street photography the most, and that's kind of it.
So give us your life story. So where is, for people who have no idea where Newfoundland is, where is Newfoundland?
East Coast Canada, small island. Wasn't part of Canada until 1949. Interesting fact.
And how did you make it from Newfoundland to Korea? Tell us a story.
So from Newfoundland originally, I started playing hockey at Wisconsin for a year, and then I went to I finished my undergrad here in Canada, and then I went to law school at U of T here in Toronto, and went from there to Korea to teach English for the first part, and then I got into photography pretty hard, and yeah, that's it.
So how did you first pick up a camera while you were in Korea?
I bought a Digilux 2 because I thought it looked really cool in a small camera shop in Namdaemun, which is a little area where you can buy some cameras. I got, I guess it was probably the way that camera was. I really dug it, and I eventually, from there, I bought a Leica M8 and 35mm Summicron, and I shot with that for a long time, and that really got me into it. I had every other kind of gear in the middle there, but yeah.
So, I think one of the funny things is your story with gas.
Yes.
So tell us your gas adventures.
Well, basically, I'm full of gas.
Yeah. Really bloated, right?
It was quite bloated.
Yeah, but you've gone through like a rehab session.
I've been to rehab several times, and I'm on the wagon now, so it's good. Basically, I've had every single decent camera you could probably imagine. I've had two M8s, two M9s, an M9P, an M6, an M3, an M5. That's only the Leica part. I've had the GRD3 twice, a GRD4 twice. I've had a Fujifilm. I had the X100 twice. I had a Fujifilm Class A. I've had the GR21 Ricoh, which was probably my favorite camera ever. GR1V, GR1, GR1S. I've had everything, man. Everything.
So, can you tell us what fed this gas?
Wanting a new camera fed this gas, man. It's just like anybody else. You think you get, the more cameras you get, the better you are. It's all bullshit, though. You can bleep that out if you have to.
No, it's okay. We can keep that. And you've owned a lot of different Leicas and Ricohs. Can you tell us a little bit about, what about the Leicas or the Ricohs appeal to you? And which one maybe at the end of the day you prefer?
I guess the Leica sort of appeals to me because I like the idea of shooting with a rangefinder camera. I think that suits my eye the best. The feeling of shooting with the rangefinder camera is really, I don't know, it feels very organic to me. I really enjoy shooting with it, but in the end, I always go back to one of the Ricoh film point and shoots. Right now I have the GR1V. The GR21 is probably my favorite camera of all time. I think for my personal style of street photography, it allows me to not worry so much about the process of shooting as opposed to the final product. It just feels naturally like a part of me. I love the Ricoh film series the best, for sure.
So after an unfortunate series of events,
yes,
you pretty much went from having every single Leica out there and stuff like that into having nothing pretty much.
Yeah,
so can you talk about, I mean, it was really kind of like rehab, right?
It was definitely like rehab. So, like you said, an unfortunate series of events. And I guess that'll be our inside joke, but I ended up with nothing, literally my cell phone as my only camera. I didn't even have a film camera, I had nothing. And it was cathartic in a way because I didn't have to, there was a point where I would have 8 cameras on the floor and 10 lenses and have probably $30,000 worth of camera equipment, have no idea what to go out and take the shoot with. And I ended up taking 3 of them and still not see an interesting moment and have no idea what to shoot it with. So yeah, it's been cathartic to get out of that, and yeah, so I'm back down to square one now.
Yeah, it's funny because like you had all these fancy, expensive Leicas and all these lenses. Now you're just back to, a simple film Rico. Do you find it to be, just liberating to just have like that one camera and not worry so much about the gear? And how does that help you?
Yeah, it's definitely liberating. I mean, like all weekend we've been arguing about film versus digital and all that kind of thing. And I think for me, and you know this about me, I have a really hard time editing my photos. So going to film really helps me a lot. I can, let my photos marinate while I, go out and shoot more. Not worry about editing them. Not worry about getting them on Lightroom right away and get something posted. I have like 12 rolls sitting in my bag right there, waiting to go to the developers, and I think that's definitely a big change for me and a positive one, and it allows me to just go out and keep shooting.
So can you talk a little bit about your thoughts on film versus digital? You've shot with both. Maybe the pros and the cons of each, and maybe why did you decide to choose?
I think obviously. Sorry. Go ahead.
Why you decided to kind of stick with black and white film at the end of the day?
Okay, so pros of digital, fast. You can, see your photos right away. I don't know if that's a pro though, because the more I think about it, I feel like it's almost like a con. For me, the biggest pros of film are, people are gonna laugh at this and probably write some comments, but it definitely does have a different look at the end of the day. Something you can't easily mimic in Lightroom or whatever. For me personally, film just allows me to just step back from my photos and take some time to think about them. If you go out and you get a photo with your, say your 5D Mark II or whatever, and you go back and you get it in Lightroom right away, you have like this attachment to it because you just took it that day. I feel like in the end, after 2 weeks, you see it on Flickr and you delete it because you don't like it anymore. I feel like film allows you to get over that, and for me personally, that was a big obstacle, and I think film's helped me out a lot. And with the film Ricos, it gives me a look that I can't get with anything else. So for my personal aesthetic and style, it works the best for me.
So to continue, Mr. White, tell us a little bit about your experiences shooting street photography in Asia versus shooting street photography here in Toronto, and also maybe a little bit about your Labyrinth project and the story behind it, why you decided to shoot it, anything you want to say about it.
So shooting in Asia versus shooting here. So obviously I'm white. If I shoot in Asia, I can pull off the white guy tourist pretty well. I think that helps out a lot. Realistically, we use what we can take. And I'm sure you would admit that sometimes, looking like an Asian tourist, like it's, in your advantage, right? So sometimes in Asia, I'd string the camera around my neck, and people would give me a completely different look than they do here. Shooting here is good too because it's where I'm from, I guess. So I have a bit of an appreciation for it. But in the end, I think I enjoy shooting in Asia more. Labyrinth was a project that, I guess Toronto was a bit of a cold city, or at least the part of Toronto I was living in. I was working like the corporate lifestyle, suit and tie every day kind of thing. And when I was walking to the subway every day back and forth to work, it became kind of like a blur to me. And everybody kind of looked the same. And I went through a really hard time with that and a series of unfortunate events. But like realistically, I think that if you see the project or if there's a link to it here or whatever, it's definitely dark. It's not for everybody. I know it's going to be polarizing, but in the end, I didn't have any cameras. I shot it on a phone, but everybody looks anonymous in it because I think that's what everybody ended up being to me. And I guess it's sort of the world through my filter.
Can you also tell us maybe? You first got your biggest following through your blog. Was it jtandsoul.wordpress.com?
Yeah, I think that would.
How did your blog? How did you give birth to your blog? And I guess how has it changed and evolved over the years?
So it originally started because I was living in Asia and my family wanted to see what I was doing. So it went from that to, now I guess it's sort of like a visual diary of my everyday stuff. I mean, I have a portfolio too, which is completely separate from my blog. My blog is more like things that happen to me every day. I write a lot on it, so I think it's realistically as much about the writing as it is about the photography itself. So yeah, I would call it a visual diary, and I think in the end, street photography is a visual diary anyway, because it's, you know, it's basically the world through our lens, right, through our eyes.
Because that's so interesting. I enjoy your writing a lot, and one thing I just found out recently about you is that, you know, growing up you read tons of books. And tell us a little bit, maybe even what you studied in school.
So I studied English literature, but I grew up. I think the last time I counted my childhood room, I had maybe 1,400 books. So all of them read at least once. So I did read a lot growing up, and I think that sort of helped evolve like who I am. You know, it's one of those things that I grew up playing sports, every sport you can imagine. But
tell us the sports.
I played hockey, golf, tennis, basketball, baseball, soccer, and all of them varsity.
And then you even went to school on.
Yeah, I played hockey and golf, Division One, the NCAA, and then I played here in Canada as well. Yeah, but in the end, I think I was a pocket nerd all the time. So.
Well, so how do you think maybe your background or your interest in maybe I would say maybe more of writing English literature, how do you think that plays into your photography?
I don't know. I think it's, you know, a lot of people will argue that photography is not about stories, and I sort of agree. I guess unless you're like a documentary photographer doing like war documentary, then, and even in the end, that is still going to be told through, you know, a lens that doesn't tell the whole story no matter what. I feel like most people would say a great photograph doesn't need any words, but you know, maybe I don't take a lot of great photographs, but I feel like I want to have, I don't necessarily talk about what the photograph shows, but I think that writing is a big part of my life, and you know, yeah, I guess that's it really. It supplements it.
In about a month, you're going to go on a road trip as well as go back to Korea. Can you tell us about your upcoming journeys?
Yeah, so I guess similarly to you, I just left my corporate job.
Yeah.
Hung up the ties, so I'm not going to see myself in your suits project. But you know, I'm going to drive back to Newfoundland from here in Toronto. It's maybe about a week long drive.
Wow.
Probably going to make it a couple weeks. My dad passed away a couple of years ago, so I'm going to go back and visit his grave, see my hometown. And, you know, I've never been back there when I was into photography, so I've always wanted to photograph the eastern part of Canada, so I'm going to do that as part of my road trip. And I've got my mom to tag along with me, so yeah, it should be a good trip. And then back to Korea after that to start in late August.
Why do you want to go back to Korea?
Korea's great, man.
What about it?
Just in general, I don't know, I like the people and the atmosphere and the vibe, and you know what, it's a great place to wander and to, you know, explore, and it's a good home base if you like the Asian culture. And I mean, you know, it's a $150 flight to Tokyo and a $300 flight to Thailand, and you know what I mean. It's just a great base and a good place to live, and it's safe. And yeah, I have a lot of good friends there. I spent a lot of time there, and we first met there, so it's good. Yeah, it'll be a good place to go back to. I'm excited.
Can you tell us a little bit about, you know, you work primarily in black and white, and I think that's what your strongest work is. Can you tell us a little bit about the photographers who have helped shape, I guess, your aesthetic and your vision and your interest in photography?
Sure. So it's not necessarily like that I try to mimic anybody's style or anything like that. I think that, you know, you're shaped by photographers. You don't necessarily have to mimic them, but I really like Daido Moriyama's work a lot, although like you and some of our other friends, I would agree that he doesn't have a very good, like, he doesn't edit his photos nearly as well as maybe he needs to, but I do really I take a lot from his work, and I like this sort of, it's almost like his world is reflected back to it's almost like a self-portrait, right? And I really appreciate that. I like Kudelka's work, which you know, I was actually introduced to from you. I really like William Klein, and I guess William Klein and Daido Moriyama are you know, similar veins. Yeah, but I mean, like, you know, I look at a lot of modern guys too, yourself or our buddy Charlie Kirk or like any of these guys, and I really appreciate all types of photography, and you know, I try to, I try to look at and read and see as much as I can.
To That's really great to hear. To go back maybe to Dido, I think he's probably had the biggest influence on your work.
Yeah, for sure, man.
I guess, so myself included, there's a lot of people who don't get Dido.
I don't think the people saw your quotations over there.
Yeah, they don't get Dido. What do you personally get out of his photos? Or why do you, can you explain a little bit more what draws you to his work?
I think that honestly, the reason why most people don't get it is because they look at his work very broadly. He tends to put every photo he takes into a book, and you have to sort of weed through that. When I first started liking him, I saw his work at a small exhibition in Tokyo, and it was printed photos, and they were printed quite large. And,
about how big?
Fairly big.
Fairly big, yep.
But seeing them that large and as a part of a series, they were photos from Hawaii, and seeing them in that type of atmosphere, like I know he probably took 400 photos there, or 4,000, but seeing those 8 to 12 photos, I thought was really powerful, and seeing them printed and knowing that there's a lot of artistry in the darkroom and that kind of thing, which I can't do or mimic. I just really appreciate it a lot, and I think I recommend, if you do have a chance to check out some of his work, look at it in terms of don't look at it in terms of everything, but pick out the different photos there, and always think about it in terms of a walk. Like he describes himself as a walking dog, or a stray dog who just walks around, and I take his work as a visual diary. So yeah, like there might be a photo of what you would say is nothing, but realistically, if you look at it in terms of him just wandering around, it's like you're seeing the world through his eyes, right? And I appreciate that, because for me, street photography is a visual diary, and the high contrast black and white is just his filter, right? So I think that's what I like about it. I like the walk.
Yeah. So you shoot black and white as well.
Yeah.
And you're shooting at the moment, I believe, Ilford HP5, pushing to 1600 in the GR1V in camera. So why black and white, and why the high contrast gritty look for you?
I also shoot T-Max 400, same thing. I just, I like the aesthetic. I like, I'm a sucker for grain, man, like real grain, not the Lightroom kind. And, our buddy Neil was teasing me because I'm also a sucker for out of focus, blur. You know what, man? If that's what you like, you got to stick behind it. And I take all the ribbing and I give some back. So, it's my aesthetic and it's what I like, and I just love the way it looks. And in the end, isn't photography about loving what it looks like?
Oh yeah,
right? It's a photographic.
Yeah. Well, another interesting thing is we talk about how you can know a person through their photographs.
Right.
Before I even met you, I looked at your photos, and they're all pretty. I would say there's a combination. Right? I think it kind of goes through phases. Like once again, you talk about your visual diary. Like
That's it, yeah.
There'd be a certain phase where oh, Josh is probably really happy and in a good mood because there's a lot of photos of kids. Really happy photos taken during the day, and then they'll suddenly get really dark where they're just really dark, black and white. Confused, really moody looking photos. Can you tell us a little bit about how your emotions play into your photos and what you think your photos say about you as a person?
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. I think you described it better than I probably could, especially being somebody who knows me and looking at it, and you can see the real me plus the photo. So I think, you can kind of see through the photo and see what it's like. It's funny because, if I post a really dark photo, like my buddies like you or whoever will send me a message like, "You all right, man?" Like
yeah.
So
feeling a little emo.
Yeah, feeling a little emo, exactly. I think that it's a bit of a good example was some guy who followed my blog or whatever sent me an email once, and it basically said like you should rename your blog the bipolar photographer. And I sort of yeah, I mean, photographically I guess I am a bit bipolar, but it's yeah, it's, you know, I think the world reflects back at you, right? What you feel is what you see, and what you see is what you feel, and I guess my photographs are no different. It's, you know, I can't photographs are supposed to be, you know, in the end, I guess, a realistic representation of what you're seeing. And if I go out and I take a photo and it's really dark, that's what I'm seeing, you know what I mean? And if I go out and take a photo that's really happy, I mean, that's also what I'm seeing. So, you know, in the end, that's just how it goes. But I think that's what makes photography interesting. You and I could go out and you could be in a really bad mood, and I could be in a really great mood, and even though people think of us as being the complete opposite of that, you know, maybe I'll take a great, happy, smiling photo, and you'll take a out of focus, blurry, sad one.
Well, when it comes to your, I guess, your photos, is there a certain like legacy you might want to leave behind or anything like that?
I think I'm still trying to find it, and I think we probably always are, but whatever it is, I haven't found it yet, but I'll be sure to let you know first.
So moving forward, you know, people who check out you, your blog, your work, anything they could expect from you, like whether it be your photos, your projects, your blogs, whatever it may be.
Yeah, so I'm working on a couple of projects. Probably the biggest one is I've been doing a project on like the tattoo culture here in Toronto, which should be an interesting one to look at. It's shot all on that Ilpert HP5 you're talking about, and it's you know, it won't be as bleak as it probably sounds. It's actually probably one of my more like happy, I guess, projects. Also, for my blog, it's gonna be a lot more visual diary than it has been for the last year. I think that, you know, going back to Korea and taking this trip is a sort of a fresh start, and it's been stagnant for a long time. So yeah, it's gonna get a big boost soon, and it's gonna be yeah, it's gonna go back to the roots, I guess. You know, a couple photos a week, and you know, yeah, that's kind of it.
If you stepped in a time machine,
yes,
like maybe 5 years ago, and you went to Korea again and you just started photography again,
yes,
what would you have done differently in terms of maybe
a lot of money is what I would have done differently. I definitely would have bought a lot less gear and used a lot of that money to travel and to meet more people, do more things. You know, like you can go out and buy a $5,000 camera and walk around your block with it, but in the end that $5,000 could have taken you halfway around the world for a week or 2 weeks or a month.
More than 1 or 2 weeks.
Well, yeah.
Depends how balling you want to travel.
True that. But yeah, I mean, like, and then those experiences, those are the things that you're going to remember, not, you know, the cameras that you had. And I'm sure I had 3 times as many as I just mentioned, and just because I can't remember them. So in the end, that stuff doesn't really matter a whole lot. You just kind of, you know, you go out and you do it. And I wish I would have learned that a lot sooner. And probably learned that before experiences made me learn it. But, you know, in the end, I guess you learn from that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'm glad eventually I figured it out.
And this is one question I got from, I got inspired by Charlie Kirk, but what is one question that no one's ever asked you that you would ask yourself and respond to it?
Wow, yeah. I'm going to have to email Charlie about this one. No, really.
Or something you don't really mention about yourself or your photography, or it could be personal or photography related.
Probably. You know, that's a really hard question. But, you know, I think what people, I don't know, honestly. It's a tough one. I mean, like,
maybe any misunderstandings people might have about you, like the online Josh versus the real life Josh or anything like that.
I'm not nearly as bleak as it sounds, and people probably tend to ask me things like, you know, are you really that fucking dreary? And you probably have to bleak that. No, I'm
That's
not
right.
really that dreary. Yeah, I'm usually an upbeat guy, not much like that, but probably that. And you know what? I guess people ask me before, they used to ask me why I showed too many photos, and I think that that's an interesting thing, and I've learned from that sort of. I think I wish somebody would have asked me that a long time ago, and that would have helped me learn, because now I'm, back to basics and showing it as little as possible. I think people can learn from that. You show your best, right? It's what you don't show, and I wish somebody would have asked me that a long time ago, and I probably would have learned from it.
So for people, watching or reading this interview, who are some contemporary photographers, street photographers in particular, you recommend people to follow and check out their work?
So you can follow this guy. He'd be pretty good there.
He's not bad.
Yeah, he's not bad.
A little bit touristy, but
a little bit touristy, but he's got the Asian tourist thing going.
Oh
on
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
Well. Well, like we've talked about Charlie a couple of times. Charlie Kirk's a really good. 2 cute dogs, 2 cute blogs, I guess sometimes, depending on which site you're looking for.
Yeah. What about it? Your work, his work, do you like?
It's very different than mine, and I really appreciate that. And I think Charlie is. He probably wouldn't admit it, but he's a very realistic photographer in a way. I find that his work is. When I say realistic, I think his work is very like. I don't know. It's like he's very in your face, and I appreciate that. I think that I'm really looking forward to see what he comes back with from Istanbul. I think it's going to be some great stuff. So I guess that'll be good. We were talking about Junku, our friend from Japan, who I guess what's his name on Flickr? It's like Junku
Nucleus.
Nucleus, right. So his stuff is probably some of my favorite stuff right now.
What about his work do you like?
I guess it's also somewhat bleak, but I like the it's almost like being that time machine you talked about. It's almost like going back 40 years, but you're still seeing modern Japan, but through like it's very you'd almost have to see it to know what I mean, but it's very classic looking. He doesn't rely on expensive equipment or anything fancy, but he gets very nice candid moments. Yeah, I like it. It's almost like he's just a very, very good modern black and white street photographer. I really dig his work a lot, and it's like almost taking me back to old Japan, but through a modern lens or something, I suppose. Yeah.
Any other photographers?
Yeah, I mean, like the modern guys, it's like literally you can go through the Magnum list and find lots of guys that you would really like. I mean, those are probably the two of the guys that I follow the most right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think that when I'm looking for inspiration, instead of I always end up going back to old stuff and old, like Kudelka, for example, is somebody I go back to all the time because his stuff is so strong and so powerful, and I would say yeah.
So to conclude, anyone else you would like to give a shout out to or mention?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'll give a shout out to my buddy Tyler, who's sitting right here. He helped me out through the series of unfortunate events, and I appreciate that kind of stuff. And yeah, I mean that's really it. You should give a shout out to your manager Neil, who's in Toronto. He's become one of my good buddies and a great guy. I think he doesn't get enough play in the whole Eric Kim scene, so he deserves a lot of credit, man. With our workshop that we just taught, like this guy was on top of everything all the time, and he's an all-around funny dude. And if you ever get to meet him, he's a good guy. And check out his stuff too, because I'm not a big fan of climbing buildings, but you get a good vibe from his roof-topping stuff.
Or actually, another question I wanted to. So we taught a workshop here in Toronto this past weekend that Neil organized.
Right.
What are your maybe talk a little bit about your experiences teaching the Leica workshop with me in Seoul, as well as this workshop, like what you enjoy about teaching, what you learned through it, anything else you'd like to mention?
Well, I think every time we teach one together, I pay attention to everything you say, just like a participant. When you're doing your thing, especially in this one in particular, your presentation on composition was quite excellent, and I learned a lot from that. I even find myself it was rules I knew and things that I knew about, but seeing it right in front of you, it allows you to, now when I go out and I shoot, I sort of see it myself as following a photographer like, say, Daido Moriyama, who doesn't care about any of that stuff. But then I went back and looked at some of his old shots and realized that, you know, half of them follow the rules absolutely perfectly. So, you know, I feel like that I learned a lot from that, and it's definitely something that was good. I mean, I learned stuff about myself. Like this past one, I looked at. We talked about maybe showing some of my old photos and how I moved on from there, and you know, looking at the old photos and coming back to the new ones. I found that, you know, I learned a lot about myself and how much I've changed from, say, 5 years ago to now. And I think that was sort of important to me to go back and look at it and sort of laugh at myself, and probably something we all should do at some point.
Nice. All right. Thanks a lot for this interview. All right. Peace out.